It had been nearly 5 years since I last set foot in my hometown. 5 years of living miles away, building a life that didn't quite fit the expectations of the family I left behind. When you grow up in a small town, the idea of making it means different things depending on who you ask. For my family, especially for Sarah, my cousin, making it meant fitting into a certain mold, attending the right schools, wearing the right clothes, speaking the right way, and living a lifestyle that screamed privilege. I, on the other hand, had taken a different path. One full of hard work, long nights, and compromises that most people wouldn't understand. So when the annual family reunion invitation showed up in my mailbox, I felt a mix of emotions. Nostalgia battled with anxiety. I wasn't sure I wanted to face the people who had judged me for years, especially Sarah. But then came the note from my aunt, handwritten, sincere. "We all miss you. It won't be the same without you." That small message nudged me. Maybe it was time to try. When I arrived, the house was buzzing with familiar faces. My aunts and uncles chatting loudly in the kitchen, kids running through the yard, cousins catching up on their lives. The smell of barbecued ribs and fresh pies filled the air, mixed with the warm hum of family chatter and laughter. It should have felt comforting. But it didn't. Not yet. I scanned the crowd, searching for anyone I might recognize or anyone who might greet me warmly. Instead, before I could even open my mouth to say hello, I felt a pair of eyes on me. It was Sarah. She stood near the front porch, arms crossed, wearing that look, the one that said she thought she was better than everyone else in the room. Her lips curled into a smirk as she sized me up, clearly unimpressed. Without missing a beat, she called out loud enough for several people nearby to hear, "Oh, look who finally showed up. I thought you wouldn't bother." Heads turned, conversations paused, eyes flicked between us. Sarah wasn't just making a passing comment. She was putting me on the spot, trying to embarrass me in front of the family. I forced a smile and replied, "I'm here. Isn't that what matters?" She shook her head, stepping closer, voice dripping with condescension. "Honestly, you don't really belong here. You're not exactly classy enough for this crowd." That hit harder than I expected. Classy. A word I'd heard thrown around a lot in my family, always as a way to exclude or put down anyone who didn't meet their narrow standards. I wasn't the son of a CEO, I didn't have a trust fund, and I didn't wear designer suits. I'd earned my place the hard way, working in startups, moving from job to job, always grinding to make something of myself. I looked Sarah in the eye and said quietly, "Maybe I'm not classy by your definition, but I'm here, and I'm not leaving anytime soon," she scoffed, turning away, but I caught the flicker of surprise in her eyes. Maybe she hadn't expected me to stand my ground. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of strained small talk and sideways glances. I overheard whispers from relatives who hadn't seen me in years, some curious, some skeptical. Sarah made sure to stay close to the center of attention, laughing a little too loudly and sharing stories about the glamorous lives she pretended to lead on social media. Meanwhile, I noticed a few family members throwing me subtle, apologetic looks, those who knew the real me and remembered the kid I used to be before all the judgment set in. The reunion dinner was set to start soon. People began gathering inside the big old house, the kind with creaky floorboards and walls that had heard 1,000 family secrets. I stepped into the kitchen to help set the table, trying to blend in, but I could feel Sarah's eyes burning into my back. Later, I heard her bragging to a small group about someone special she was hoping to meet at the reunion, a local celebrity who had recently made it big. She was so focused on this person that she barely noticed me. That's when I knew my little plan for the night was going to make an impact. For years, I'd lived under Sarah's shadow, the classy cousin who had the family's favor, while I was the other one who didn't quite fit in. But tonight, that was about to change. As the reunion evening deepened, I could feel the atmosphere shifting. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and the warm glow of string lights Around the backyard cast a soft shimmer over the gathering. Family members circled in smaller groups, laughing and sharing stories that sometimes felt like echoes of the past, familiar, yet distant. Sarah was still working the room like a seasoned socialite, clearly anticipating something. Over the past few weeks, she had been hyping up this reunion to anyone who would listen, especially about a certain VIP she claimed would be attending. I hadn't paid much attention at first, but now I understood why. Her excitement was all about Jake Mercer. Jake Mercer was a rising star in Hollywood, not one of those overnight sensations who burn out quickly, but someone steadily climbing, the ladder with charm, talent, and an approachable personality. Everyone in the family knew about Jake. He was the talk of the town and a name that carried weight even in our small community. Sarah had waited hours just to catch a glimpse of him, boasting on social media about her chance to meet the celebrity in person. I knew Jake a little better than most. We had met years ago through a mutual friend in Los Angeles, where I'd been spending time growing my own career. Despite his fame, Jake was grounded, genuine and humble, never forgetting where he came from. Over time, we had built a friendship based on mutual respect rather than glitz or networking. When I saw Jake arrive quietly at the edge of the gathering, I waved him over with a smile. He looked relaxed, dressed casually, but still effortlessly. Stylish, like he belonged in any room he walked into. Sarah noticed immediately. Her smile faltered when she saw Jake approaching me. "You know him?" she whispered to a nearby relative, eyes wide with surprise. I nodded and introduced them both. "Jake, this is my family. Everyone, this is Jake Mercer, the man who's been keeping me out of trouble for a few years now." Jake shook hands and greeted people with a warm, easygoing manner. His presence was magnetic. Conversations sprang up around him, and suddenly Sarah's confident posture seemed a bit less assured. People who had barely noticed me before were now paying close attention. A few relatives nudged each other and whispered questions. "Is that really Jake Mercer? How does he know him?" I saw Sarah's jaw tighten as she struggled to maintain her composure. The cousin who had spent the whole afternoon putting me down was now visibly uncomfortable, her spotlight dimmed by the unexpected arrival of someone she'd been waiting hours to meet, and someone I knew well. As the evening went on, Jake mingled easily with the family, sharing anecdotes about his work and listening intently to stories from relatives. The mood lightened considerably, and I felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. I hadn't come to the reunion to prove anything through confrontation or harsh words. I came to remind them who I was and that I had value beyond their judgments. Sarah tried to regain control, telling exaggerated stories about her connections and trying to impress Jake. But it was clear he was more interested in the real people around him, the ones who treated him like a friend, not a celebrity. Later, as the party moved toward dessert, Sarah pulled me aside, her voice low and bitter. "So, you brought your little Hollywood friend to show off, huh? Think this makes you better than me?" I looked her in the eye and said, simply, "It's not about showing off, it's about being real." She looked away, and I knew this was just the beginning of a change that none of us expected. The days following the reunion were strange, in a way I hadn't anticipated. Word spread fast through the family grapevine. Jake Mercer had been there, mingling casually, not as some untouchable star, but as a friend who respected where he was from. And somehow, that reflected back on me. I started receiving messages from relatives who had ignored my calls or texts for years. Some were awkward, others genuinely warm. My aunt called to thank me for bringing Jake, saying it had been the highlight of the reunion. My uncle mentioned in passing that it was nice to see me back, and that maybe it was time to put the past behind us. Even my dad, who had always been distant, reached out to invite me over for dinner. But Sarah? That was a different story. The day after the reunion, she didn't answer my calls or messages. When I ran into her at the local coffee shop a few days later, she barely looked up. I decided to confront it head on. "Sarah, can we talk?" She sighed, eyes tired, and nodded reluctantly. We sat down outside, away from the crowd. "Look, I know you think I'm some outsider," I said. "That I don't fit into the family the way you do, but I'm tired of the competition and the insults. We're family. Shouldn't we be supporting each other? She looked down for a moment, then back up, her voice soft but firm. I guess I've always felt like I had to prove myself. Maybe I thought you were an easy target because you left. I left because I had to find my own path. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone. But family means more than fitting into a mold. It means acceptance. There was a long silence between us. Then, slowly, she nodded. I'm sorry. For what I said. For making you feel less than. It wasn't a grand reconciliation, but it was a start. Meanwhile, my friendship with Jake blossomed. He continued to visit from time to time, sometimes even joining me at family dinners. What began as a quiet gesture to prove a point became a genuine bridge between the worlds I lived in. Over the next few months, I noticed changes. Sarah started to include me in more family events, and the sharp edge of her attitude softened. Others followed her lead, and slowly, the barriers that had separated me from my family began to crumble. Most importantly, I learned that respect isn't given because of status or connections. It's earned by being true to yourself and showing kindness, even when others doubt you. The reunion that once felt like a battlefield had become the foundation for something better. A family reconnected, not by appearances or status, but by real understanding and acceptance. The months after the reunion passed by in a blur of unexpected moments and quiet growth. What started as a simple act, bringing Jake Mercer to the family reunion, had transformed more than just my relationship with Sarah. It had reshaped my entire connection with the family. I remember the first time my dad truly acknowledged my success. It wasn't about money or status, but a quiet conversation in his garage one evening. Son, he said, wiping his hands on a rag, I've been hard on you, maybe more than I should have been. I always wanted the best for you, even if I didn't show it right. I nodded, feeling the weight of years lift. I get that now, and I'm proud of what you've done. That moment meant more than any celebration or big announcement. It was acceptance, plain and simple. Sarah and I continued to rebuild our relationship. We started spending more time together, not as competitors, but as siblings who had weathered storms and come out stronger. We laughed about the reunion days, how she couldn't believe Jake had actually shown up, and I teased her about her social media posts bragging about it. At the next family gathering, I noticed something different. The way everyone talked, the warmth that hadn't been there before, it was as if we had all turned a new page. Jake was still around, a quiet fixture who had become part of the family's story. Not a celebrity overshadowing the rest of us, but a friend who reminded us all that kindness and humility matter more than fame. For me, the reunion wasn't just about proving a point or showing off a connection. It was about reclaiming my place in a family that had once cast me aside. I realized that true respect isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right by staying authentic, working hard, and opening your heart to forgiveness. Now, when I think back to that day, I smile. Because what once felt like a divide became the bridge to a better future, and that's a story worth telling.